all the interest in Downton Abbey, it gives us a chance to look at our collection anew and to see in terms of what do we want to illustrate with this exhibit. And in this case, we wanted to show the social changes and how the social changes of the era depicted in Downton Abbey are revealed in clothing changes. So we chose pieces closer to the turn of the century aesthetic, moving into the teens, where hemlines come up and the corsets are loosened, and the things that didn't change so much. And what that says, women's wear changed dramatically, men's wear not as much. The domestic staff, their clothing reveals the least amount of change over time.
This room is remarkable because you get to see the transition that really happens throughout the Downton Abbey show as well. Where are we starting here?
What this shows you is the evolution from Edwardian moving towards the 20s, and the character that we chose to illustrate this with is Cora. So if you think back to Cora in the first season of Downton Abbey, you see her often in the high collar, the low full sleeve, the very tightly corseted small waist. This is a wonderful ensemble. It's wool trimmed in a very pale green velvet, and it's beautifully detailed. Very, very tailored though, and you can see that even though you have that pigeon breast or the monobosom, that was very much the look right around the turn of the century, where you have a full chest tapering down to a tiny waist. By contrast, by season 3, we're looking at closer to the 20s here. The lace is very typical of the era, and we have this wonderful beaded neckline. Very loose-fitting jacket, but this neckline is really quite wonderful, and again, it's that really exquisite use of beading that was so typical. Cora's very much the bellwether in some ways of really what fashion was doing at the moment. Her daughters are going to be at the fashion forefront. By contrast, you have Violet, the dowager, who will move at a very stately progress and consider what she does or doesn't want to change about the way she dresses. When we go to the kitchen, we will find Carson the butler in the pantry. He's polishing silver. We'll also find Daisy, poor Daisy, the scullery maid, and she is, as you would expect, hard at work next to the range. As viewers will remember, Mrs. Patmore goes through a very scary episode with her vision, and we have a selection of eyewear from that period that really shows what your options were. Glasses haven't changed as much as other things have. The pieces we have right here are representations of Lady Mary and Lady Edith. We have here 2 beaded dresses from the early teens, and you can see that the corset is not gone, but it's disappearing. Things are looser, things are freer, hemlines are coming up. Women are enjoying a new degree of freedom, which doesn't always sit well with the earlier generation. If you, for example, contrast this to Violet, the dowager, we don't see her ankles at all. Here we have a striped walking suit from about 1912, a very, very popular ensemble from this period. The walking suit became the go-to garment. This is our tribute to Violet. It has a certain degree of formality, but also a new emerging freedom. You can see it's almost a suit tailoring as opposed to the tightly confined, more corseted jackets that we saw even 10 years earlier, around the turn of the century. So this is in silk. Ostrich plumes, very much of the period, and the shape of this hat is very much of the period as well. Low, broad, and with this wonderful plume that has managed to survive for about 100 years.
And this is a distinct change from what we saw a little earlier with the beading and the more free-form dress and a lot more skin.
And actually, this is an interesting point. This would be a daywear piece, and we chose it for the dowager to really illustrate a couple of important points. Then as now, younger people tend to adapt very quickly to the new fashions. The old guard was never going to go in that direction. Typically, the people in society that adapt quickest to new fashions are the young and the wealthy. Those are the 2 hallmarks of people that can afford to reflect what is of the moment. As the seasons progress and you see the dramatic changes in clothing as well as in society, gender roles, social class roles, It really opens up a discussion of what do clothes say about us? What does it reveal about who we are as a society as well as individuals?